what is this middleman doing? Why are they involved in this transaction on a $5 drug? How do we get to $300? They bill the insurance company $3,000 for that drug.
The most frustrating thing around prescriptions is the hidden or the lack of transparency.
Middlemen are the ones that kind of control the entire pharmacy experience for consumers. If you ask any economist, we'd actually lower the cost of healthcare if we used our insurance less.
Welcome to this edition of the MediConnect Medicare Made Simple podcast. I'm CEO Lance O'Brien, and today I'm joined by Kyle McCormick, owner of Blueberry Pharmacy in Westview, PA. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well.
That's good. Thanks for having me here.
It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's been.
How's life? How's family? How's work?
Everything's going well. We're getting busy at the store. We have a new baby.
Oh, congratulations.
So we had a third child in March. So she's 2 months old.
Girl?
So we had two boys and now we have a girl. So
wow.
Yeah. So the family's growing, the pharmacy's growing. So it's been good.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit as we get into it, because today what we really want to talk about is kind of pull back the curtain on prescription pricing, right? Because for me, one of the big issues that I see in working in this space and dealing with people all the time is prescriptions are the great separator. And what I mean by that is if you get a Medicare Advantage plan, your copays, deductibles, premiums, yes, there's some difference. If there wasn't, it would all be the same plan, but it's not that different. You get a supplement, you know everything's pretty much the same other than the price you pay for it. But in the world of prescriptions, it can be wildly different. And I really want to dive into that today. But before we do, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into this, all the fun stuff?
Yeah, and thanks again for having me. So my background is I'm about 10 years, 15 years removed from pharmacy school now, but I've always been interested in independent pharmacy. I grew up in Somerset, Pennsylvania, and started working at a small independent there. Got to know the community, got to see the role that a pharmacy plays in a community, not just as a health hub, but also as a kind of community center. And I just really liked that. And so I went to Pitt for pharmacy school, worked at the independent pharmacy there on campus, and then a couple more independents after graduation. And all that continued on. I got to see, the role that we play in the community. But why I chose to do something different with Blueberry Pharmacy is 2 out of the 4 pharmacies I used to work at closed. Okay. And the kind of the autopsy report for those pharmacies was that, and literally the one pharmacy she wrote up a kind of a report as to why they closed. And it was that the reimbursement from insurance companies was not enough to keep the pharmacy afloat. And so I realized, if I I was working up in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and we had a newborn, at home, and couldn't justify the drive. So it was the decision of go work for somebody here in Pittsburgh or try to my own pharmacy. And so I talked to my wife and realized, it makes sense to just try it. 6 months, a year later, if it's not working, call it quits, work somewhere else. Yeah.
You got to try stuff.
Exactly. And, but whenever it came down to writing the business plan, it was, am I going to recreate this business model that seems to be failing everywhere? This was prior to Rite Aid going out of business, prior to Walgreens getting bought up by private equity, prior to GoodRx being a sub $2 stock. So this is a decent bit early, right. But the realization was this business model makes no sense. And so I think back to a Medicare patient I had who. She was in the donut hole. This is our aging ourselves, right?
Yeah, we are aging ourselves a little bit, right?
Daddy, what's a donut hole?
Something good to eat, right?
Well, back in my days, son. So this is during the donut hole, and she came into the pharmacy up in Indiana, and her bladder control medication was a $300 copay. And it was generic. Probably some of your audience is on it. It's Vesicare, also known as sulfenacin, and I had the bottle in front of me. I buy the product. I could see that we paid $5 for the product. And I said, this is Medicare.
That's just insane to me. Yeah. Let's stop there for a minute because that's going to lead to a bunch of questions for me, but that's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. Yeah. And so I said, this is Medicare. This is the product that, we have legislators saying, let's get this for everybody. And it's like, is this really what we want? Like, isn't there a world where I could charge a reasonable price for this $5 drug and the patient's happy, I make money, I stay in business. So that's where I kind of came up with the cost plus model. I always think back to that patient where it's like, this is $5. Can we charge 15? Can we charge 20?
Right.
And just see if that model makes sense. And so fast forward, we ended up opening that model called Blueberry Pharmacy. It's a cost plus model where we just charge cost we buy it at with a 6%, I guess actually 8% markup and the $10 dispensing fee.
Right.
And so that's what we do at Blueberry Pharmacy. And fast forward 6 years, the industry has completely changed.
Yeah.
So we opened in March 2020. Which is the best time to be opening up a business.
You don't say.
Yeah. We sold a lot of masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer. But the industry's completely changed such that, I mentioned those pharmacies closing, restructuring. But even the pricing conversation has completely changed during that time. Our small pharmacy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the FTC did a report on PBMs. And during the interim report, pharmacy benefit manager. So they're the middleman between the insurance company. So you think of in the area, we have the UPMCs, Highmarks, et cetera. They don't manage that pharmacy benefit. They manage the medical benefit. And they contract that out to what are called pharmacy benefit managers, the big three being Express Scripts, Caremark, and Optum.
Right.
And those middlemen are the ones that kind of control the entire pharmacy experience for consumers. Yeah. And so the FTC, because of things that we'll talk about today, the FTC decided to do an investigation into them. The final results, I guess you could say, have been reported, but we're seeing small or bigger and bigger actions happening as a result. But in the interim report, our small pharmacy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was one of two pharmacies mentioned in the FTC report on PBMs. Wow. And that's because of the transparency that we are bringing to the marketplace to really drive the conversation. What is this middleman doing? Why are they involved in this transaction on a $5 drug? How do we get to $300? And so that's really
to me, like I hear that I got a $5 drug that goes to $300, and I say, there's somebody not doing a good job. Like that's what my internal instinct
depends on who you are. They're doing a great job.
Well, exactly. But for the end consumer, to me, which should be ultimately what we're trying to do. Yes, we live in a capitalistic society. Yes, businesses have to make money. I'm behind all that.
Yeah.
I agree with all that. But there has to be some common sense that comes into it. And so I do have some questions for you specifically today. But before we jump into it, I think for me, the most frustrating thing around prescriptions is the hidden or the lack of transparency, right? Like when I go and buy a car, and if I go to the dealership and there's no prices on the windows, what do? I get in my car and I leave, right? Because at that point in time, I don't know what game I'm getting ready to play.
Yeah.
And frankly, when I'm going to spend that amount of money, I don't want to play a game. Right. I want to have some transparency. Yeah. And that's where I think we need to get to with prescription prices. So let me ask this question. Why are the prices so wildly different from one place to another, or one insurance carrier to another, or one pharmacy to another? Why is there so much price difference?
Yeah, so there's two major things that I can think of that affect that price. The first is the pharmacies like to point fingers at pharmacy benefit managers, but we'll start with who submits a price. And that is the pharmacy. The pharmacy is in control of what the price gets submitted to the insurance company for reimbursement. Now, our pharmacy, we don't sign contracts, but our pricing algorithm is the same. Our cost, like I said, plus 8%.
Plus your dispensing fee. Yeah.
So that is the price out the door. Now, any pharmacy can set whatever pricing algorithm they want to be submitted. But the majority, I'd say 90% plus of pharmacies use what's called a traditional AWP, average wholesale price. And that is literally a made-up number by the manufacturer. And they take that and they do a multiplier on that and a dispensing fee on that. And that is what's called their usual and customary that they submit to insurance. So you have this made up number for the sulfenacin that we talked about, the bladder control medication. Even though we bought it for $5, the pharmacy I was working at had an algorithm that took the AWP, which for that drug was probably close to $500. The multiplier was probably 80% of AWP. And so that's where we get a $300, price tag. Yeah. And so the pharmacies, to some extent, hold some of the responsibility because they're using a made-up number that's usually really inflated. That's a minor example compared to some of the medications we deal with around chemo. So we have one called imatinib, where we buy it for $25. The AWP for imatinib is $7,000. So you can see where a pharmacy that's playing the game will take that $25 drug. Instead of submitting a reasonable price around that, they submit the AWP or some, percent of AWP. And that's where you get an $8,000. And Medicare on average spends like $3,000 to $4,000 per prescription on that.
Right.
So the pharmacy definitely has a role. If every pharmacy did cost plus pricing, even though we don't sign contracts,
it would significantly impact things.
Yeah, you could, do your cost plus pricing and submit it to insurance. So that's, one piece. The second piece would be the pharmacy benefit manager. And they kind of twist the pharmacy's arm and force them to do this whole pricing game because they don't pay what you ask for.
Right.
They pay a percentage, to simplify it, they pay, some small percentage of what you ask for.
Right.
So for this sulfenacin, most of the time, whenever we would submit that, we'd get paid $10, right? There is the off chance that an insurance plan is set up to pay more than that, so some percentage of what you ask. So that's why we have to ask for the world, for the moon, and land somewhere. What is it, like shoot for the stars, land on the moon kind of thing? That's why pharmacies kind of shoot so high to then occasionally land at a decent number, because on average, in the autopsy report of the pharmacy, 80% of fills. So 80% of prescriptions dispensed, that pharmacy was dispensing 60,000 prescriptions a year. 80% of those prescriptions were done below the cost to actually do the work dispensing it, right?
So you can't sustain yourself.
Right. Yeah. So those other 20%, that full sulfenacin example, had to be so high because it had to make up for all those losses.
Other losses. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the PBM is twisting the arms of the pharmacies to say, hey, play this pricing game along with us.
Right.
Because if I sent for that sulfenacin, if I submitted that I only want $20 for that drug, I'm only going to get paid 20, 15, something like that.
Right.
And no longer does that help offset the cost of those other 80% of prescription fills.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So we've got the pharmacy that submits a bid, right? Then we've got the PBM that's trying to make money probably for the pharmaceutical companies, I'm assuming, things of that nature, right? Yeah. Where does the insurance companies, specifically and with the grouping that I work with, obviously people that are on ACA, the Affordable Care Act, but mostly Medicare, where does the insurance company come into that equation?
Well, they for the most part contract a lot of that out. Now the problem is that there's a lot of consolidation, and that's a vertical integration, we could say, right? So, for example, Caremark, they're not only a PBM, but then they are the same company as Aetna, the same company as CVS. So if I get somebody on my Aetna plan, and I can then structure the insurance benefits such that they have to use CVS, then I can overbill. For example, you can see transparent pricing on GoodRx is my favorite site, not because we use it, but because they cross out the dollar amount that the pharmacy is actually submitting and show the coupon price. Well, that's transparency into what each pharmacy is overcharging. So if I go to GoodRx and see that CVS on dimethyl fumarate, which is a medication for multiple sclerosis, they bill the insurance company $3,000 for that drug. So if I can, and then they force people that have their insurance to use CVS specialty, right? So if I can see that, then I know how much each pharmacy is overcharging. Whereas Costco, they actually use a somewhat of a cost plus pricing philosophy. They only charge, I think, like $800 for that drug, right? Still crazy compared to our
just a really big car payment or a mortgage
compared to our $28, right?
Yeah.
But compared to $3,000, it's vastly different. So you can see in at some level of transparency into how these pharmacies. So to some extent, the insurance companies of the world kind of play. They don't play a huge role because that is contracted out to the pharmacy benefit manager. But they can choose their pharmacy benefit manager. They could shop that around to there's other transparent PBMs.
Right.
They don't, because a lot of times they're vertically integrated. Optum being one of the other big ones. They are owned by United Healthcare, right? United Healthcare, UHC being one of the bigger offerings for insurances. Express Scripts being one that, you might be able to educate me more than I am, but I don't know that they necessarily they have Cigna, but they're not necessarily a big player in the insurance side, especially in this area. But they are a big player in the pharmacy benefit manager, because both
so.
Highmark and UPMC use Express Scripts, right?
Yeah.
So now you could play, where there is vertical integration is go down the chain a little bit. And on the pharmacy side, Express Scripts, you could say, well, they don't own a pharmacy. They do, right? Because the mail order offering for those plans is usually Express Scripts pharmacy.
Yeah.
They also have their hands in specialty pharmacy. So Accredo, they own Accredo. Not only that, but there's a company called Chartwell Pharmacy.
Yep.
That's a joint, the parent to that is CarePath. And that's a joint venture between UPMC and Express Scripts, right? So like you can see where, maybe the different insurance companies don't have the best interests in. So this is where you have to like really look at the numbers, because not always will they have the best interest of the patient, because they have downstream business ventures that benefit from these high prices.
Yeah, so you've got basically these three entities theoretically trying to come together to help the consumer. And in some cases it does, because I don't think you would sit here and advocate that people never use their insurance for filling their prescriptions, right? Because obviously there are some plans or some medications that they could get for $0 on their plan.
We'll get into that.
Yes. Yeah. So, but the reality is when they can't get it for $0, and the pharmacy, through the whole algorithm we just talked about, right, makes a prescription significantly more expensive than it truly should be, that's when they would want to go outside of their insurance, right?
Yeah. We could dive into like the nuances of it. But for simplified, yes. Yeah.
So when do you recommend that people go outside of their insurance?
Yeah. We'll dive deep a little bit.
Not too deep. Let's keep it simple for everybody. But
I'll make the analogy just like you did to cars. Car insurance versus health insurance, right? So car insurance, we buy for high cost unknown events.
Right.
I buy my car insurance in case I'm in a car accident, in case I that's really the only time, right? Like I literally have not used my car insurance in the past 15, 20 years of driving. So, but I still have it, right?
But
I never advocate
risk mitigation
is legally required, but I still would have it regardless, right? So I don't buy it though to try to put my oil changes through it, to try to put my gasoline through it, to even do minor, repairs. Heck, it doesn't even cover my yearly physical for my car, right? My annual wellness visit for my car, it doesn't cover, nor should it really, right?
Right.
Because these are low cost, predictable expenses. We buy car insurance and nearly every other insurance product for the high cost, unknown expenses.
Yes.
That's really, if you ask an economist, what insurance is intended for. And so that's my deep dive.
It's to make sure that life doesn't completely unravel on you on one event.
Yes.
Yes.
The problem outside of MediConnect, the problem is health insurance, and really it's the structure of health insurance, but we try to use it for everything. I can't even, unlike that analogy to cars, if I'm calling to make my annual wellness visit for my car, a checkup, an inspection, I don't need to pull out my car insurance card, right? I can't even schedule a doctor's visit without pulling out my health insurance card. That's because we overuse insurance in healthcare.
Right.
If you ask any economist, we'd actually lower the cost of healthcare if we used our insurance less, and if we reserved our insurance for the high cost unknown events. And so whenever I said nuance with freeze, is a lot of times what insurance is doing is it's taking the things that literally cost pennies and making consumers think, oh, my insurance is doing something for me.
Yeah, I'm getting a deal.
Yeah. If you look at the $0 things, atorvastatin, we buy a 1,000-count bottle for $5.
Yeah.
Any consumer can go and buy that.
So it's a fraction of a penny.
Yeah. And we're buying our amlodipine, literally a 1,000-count bottle I buy for $3. Well, great. Make it free. I don't, like,
Right.
what, what are we doing here? And then whenever you get put on the expensive, ridiculously high cost product, we say, oh, it's non-formulary. Oh, it's a tier 3, multiple hundred. Really, that's the car accident.
Yeah.
That's what we should want insurance to cover is those catastrophic things.
Right.
And instead, it's a lot of it. If you're not using the right plan, if you don't pick the right plan, if you don't have MediConnect on your side, you're kind of out of luck.
Right.
Whenever you actually have that car accident happening.
Yeah.
And so we advocate, this is, talk to your MediConnect broker, but we advocate that really you should want to not use your car, just like your car insurance, you should not want to use your health insurance for low cost predictable expenses. That includes even theoretically $0 copays. Why is that? It's because the more you use your insurance, just like car insurance, the more you use it, the more it goes up.
Right.
And so the more we use our insurance for these low cost predictable things, that's why premiums go up every single year ahead of inflation. Yeah. And so really we should be using our insurance for those high cost unpredictable expenses versus the low cost generic drugs.
And I think that's where it gets challenging, like for your average consumer, right?
Well, you can't see prices. How do you know what it is?
You can't see prices. You have a lot of people, like average Social Security check today in America is $1,800 a month, right? A lot of people are living only on that. And that's the average. So, there's more that are living at 12, 13, 1,400 where they're not getting the support of, say, Medicaid or the state, where for them, anything that they can get for zero, they're going to take for zero. So it really is a challenge to find that balance point. So when somebody's got their zero medication, they fill it through their insurance plan, their pharmacy, they do all of that. I think you've made some really good points of why that should be something they consider. So like, again, let me ask this question because you mentioned atorvastatin, right? It's zero. Somebody comes to you, 1,000-count bottle, $5, you mark it up, this and that. Like, what would somebody pay for that medication at Blueberry Pharmacy?
So somebody that's on that probably has multiple medications. So they'd be a member of our pharmacy, which we won't get into the nuances of. But our cost on a 90-day supply is $6. So for a full year, they'd pay $24.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But to the greater point to the bigger question of how do you decide? So yeah, it's very hard to win over somebody on the argument of you could pay
zero or you could pay $24.
We have many people now though that realize the benefit of that,
right.
And it's beyond just the more philosophical argument is the more you use your insurance, just like car insurance, the more you use it, the more premiums go up. So that's the philosophical argument. The real argument is you get the service that you pay for. So if you are going to a place and paying zero, you're not the customer.
Yeah.
Because you've spent nothing there. Your insurance may actually be harming that pharmacy and putting them out of business. Therefore, they can't even provide you better service, right? Yeah. And so the real argument that a lot of our patients see in using us for maybe things that could be less expensive through insurance, is the service that they get. Because now I'm voting with my dollar, and I actually, I am getting that level of service that pharmacies. The patient this morning, I can't believe that when I call you, I get to talk to you, right? Yeah. I greet them whenever people call in. It says, "Hi, hey, this is Kyle," and then they get Kyle. Like, I can't believe I get to talk to you. It's like, well, you pay a nominal amount,
right?
But because you're doing that, it keeps us in business.
Right.
It allows us to invest in the service that we provide to you.
Right.
If a $0 copay, what consumers don't see is a lot of those drugs, the pharmacy is making 10 cents, 20 cents. They'd be better off. They'd have better service if they sold McDonald's, $1, the cheeseburger, right?
Yeah.
That's the profit margins of a lot of these pharmacies, and that's why they're all going out of business.
Yeah.
So the real argument is, that you get the service component. Now to your question about there is very clear-cut situations where zero or no zero. There's $100 drugs, $1,000 drugs that we sell for less.
Right.
That if a patient uses their insurance, it's ridiculously higher.
Right.
The solifenacin, right? Example, chemo. We have patients that regularly get sent to us for prostate cancer, abiraterone, where their insurance is telling them it's going to be $1,000. We buy it for $50. Add on whatever the algorithm, and it comes out to $70 for them, right? So that's a very clear-cut example of where, if I choose to use my insurance, it's going to tier it tier 3. I have to have prior auths on top of that versus, and so we'll see these patients who were prescribed it back, today's May, they'll have been prescribed it back at the end of March.
Right.
And they've been fighting with their insurance company between tiers, between prior auths, between all that stuff. And
Formulary exceptions, all these types of things.
And finally, they're coming to us trying to get it filled. And we're like, you could have been on this chemo a month and a half ago, and you've decided to forgo that because of the runaround of insurance. And it's purposely difficult because an insurance company, they're more profitable the less they to some extent, they have to legally spend some of it, but they're more, the less you use your insurance, in theory, the more money the insurance company can make. So, they're trying to make it difficult because they don't want to spend $1,000 on these drugs, right? And so not only the cost, but the convenience. The nice thing about using a cost plus pharmacy, we have people that go take 6-month vacations. They don't have to call their insurance company to get that vacation override, or maybe they're not even allowed a vacation override because they already had one this year. Yeah. It's like you just pay $6 for your Torvaset, you're out the door. So there's many arguments as to why you'd want to use a cost plus insurance-free pharmacy. Right. But there's also the argument why you should still have insurance.
Yes.
Because you could still have a car accident.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like for me, like our whole goal here at MediConnect is, let's get people the best coverage we can for the best costs that we can so that they can afford and enjoy their retirement. But how our relationship started was we're running all these appointments with these individuals and we're looking at medications and we're like, there's got to be a more cost-effective way to do this, right? So I'm in a point, this is back in the day, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but back in the day, I'm looking up GoodRx and I'm comparing it against, I'll use gabapentin as an example, right? Like gabapentin's tier 3, $47. Right, and I know through GoodRx, they can get it for $20. And then it moved to Blueberry Pharmacy and looking at the options that were there, because our goal is always to put people in the best place to be able to afford their prescriptions and food and gas and all of those types of things, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's many drugs, and you could probably talk to the tiers and whatnot more than I can. But even most recently, there's the whole Medicare negotiated drugs, right?
Yes.
Well, I think on that list was like Jardiance and Farxiga,
Xarelto,
right? Xarelto. My favorite is the fact that like this year they decided to negotiate that it goes generic, and now you could use your insurance for it and pay $47 a month still. Or in Blueberry we have 90-day supply for $23, right? So there's
negotiated
many of those.
it, huh?
Exactly. Right. So there's many examples, like you said, and to your point, our relationship started because I think some of the brokers were even like, this price doesn't match what's on your website, and the realization is unless you're using a MediConnect or somebody that like actually knows, they don't know that Medicare.gov doesn't list our prices correctly. Yes. Those are literally made up, to your point, to your question. They show Blueberry prices as an AWP price. Right. They don't ask us what our price is. Yes. So you have to use a broker that actually knows where to look for real prices, because to your point, Medicare.gov is to some extent like walking a car or a lot and seeing fake prices, because our pharmacy, Cuban's pharmacy, they're all none of these are listing real prices.
Yeah. And that's what I love about like your website. I can go onto the website, I can put in the prescription. If it's one that you guys provide, it pulls right up. It tells me the pricing right there. Know exactly. I can compare it. And then I can say, this prescription, you're definitely going to want to get through this avenue. Right. So, incredible insight today. Really love kind of pulling back the curtain, right? Because like there's a lot of people that are frustrated about the cost of prescriptions. They're trying to make decisions on, do I buy this or do I buy my prescriptions, which is really a terrible thing when you think about it. So completely appreciate the insight. As we kind of wind down, I'd just like to ask you a few rapid fire questions, and maybe
I looked at I was like, oh, this sounds fun.
and maybe you can just give me like 30-second answers. But
yeah.
let's hit a couple rapid fires. So let me jump in here. So
First rapid fire is always I get is I'm 6'7".
there you go, 6'7". Yeah, when you came in today, I was
6'7", as they say.
Yeah, oh, no, don't do that. If my doctor prescribes it, my insurance will automatically cover it.
If my doctor, correct, wrong. I think every patient knows that.
The pharmacy sets all drug prices.
To the nuanced piece earlier, the pharmacy does choose what they submit to insurance. Now, that doesn't mean what you get out as your copay. So they're not responsible for what you have to pay as your copay. That's the PBM. But yes, they are responsible for what gets submitted, which directionally means how much you're going to pay.
Brand name drugs are always better.
No. To some extent, people respond differently to different things. We have people that prefer certain generic manufacturers, because it's Heinz versus Hunt's, right? You ask half the country, they're going to say Hunt's is perfectly fine. You're here in Pittsburgh. I will
Blasphemy.
not. Yes. Yeah. You're not allowed to have Heinz in my household. So brand Heinz is better, right? So there are scenarios.
Yeah. So like I've been on a prescription since I was 16, it took them a while to really figure out what was going on with me. My thyroid wasn't working, and so they put me on levothyroxine, right? So I've been on that forever, but I know some people who start out on Synthroid, they can't go to the generic, but so I only need to review my Medicare drug plan once.
And that's
this is probably a question you should be asking me.
No, I mean, any insurance product, right? You should always be checking in with, reviewing that, because the whole strategy of insurance is to get you on and then set it and forget it.
Yeah.
And same thing for health insurance. You should review, because there's new plans each year. There's changes each year. There's, the government loves to play around with it. So there's always changes. So it's just like your car insurance, this is an advertisement for just evaluate your insurance products every 2 years at least.
Yeah, I mean, formularies change, tiers change, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
Medicare rules themselves change. So I do appreciate your time today. A lot of insight. Just tell people kind of as we close how they can connect with Blueberry Pharmacy online, where you're located, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so very simple. You can phone or text us. Our number's online. Our website's just blueberrypharmacy.com. We are located in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, Westview, but we do ship across 7 states now: Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, New Jersey, Delaware, Florida, and Indiana. And so, very accessible. Like I said, you call. You won't get me right now, unless if this is live. It says on air.
Do 2 things at once.
But there's a good chance you'll get me if you call.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome. And that's one of the things that we really hang our hat on too, right? Like we answer the phone. We care about the clients. The service component is incredibly important. I know we have literally sent hundreds of people your way, right? Because we see the value of them being able to, in their scenario, get the prescriptions they need at a cost they can afford while still living. And again, I think some of your insights around why, considering not potentially using your insurance every time or things like that, I think is something great for our listening audience today to really contemplate.
And I really appreciate you inviting me and the relationship over the years. And I think it's telling to anybody that's not currently with MediConnect, the only 5-star broker in Pittsburgh, right? And we're talking to the only 5-star pharmacy in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I think that service is 100% the most important differentiator.
Yeah, no.
And I appreciate all that you do.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle. Anything we can ever do to help you, we're always here for it. And we appreciate your thoughts and your insights today.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank you all for joining the Medicare Made Simple podcast with MediConnect. Great conversation with Kyle McCormick today. You're able to listen to this podcast on your favorite platforms: Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. We'd love to continue to get great content out there for you all. And again, for us, it's all about making Medicare simple. It's about helping you understand your benefits. And we love getting feedback from people and see the impact of what our team is doing. And this is a review that just came in the last week. I want to just read it for you. This is the second time that I have used MediConnect to get help with securing the right health care I need. It is the second great experience with MediConnect offered by Barbara Margucci. She was outstanding and knew what I needed and answered all of my concerns. I have nothing but high praise for MediConnect. And I think the fact that she's bringing home the point of using us a second time. Again, we work with a lot of people that are new to Medicare. We help them kind of walk through the maze initially, but that first time decision, it's the biggest decision, but it's not the only one. So we love people coming back, repeat customers, if you will, but just really making sure that as Medicare changes, as your health changes, your needs changes, you're still in the right plan for you. And again, never a cost for our services. So again, thanks for joining today. We look forward to continue getting you great content so that you can enjoy your retirement and have confidence in your coverage. Have a great day.